It's millions of users anyway. And they're all talking to it about everything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You're sharing everything about your life, about your business. You tell it things that you probably wouldn't tell, maybe not anyone, any other human. But that is all owned by that one company. So in terms of security, in terms of privacy, like hundreds of millions of people have already kind of given that away without much consideration. And so I view our task as being helping users regain some of that control over their own data. And that's why I think it's so important that we build something that is portable and you're not locked into using our platform and that you can go in and edit it, you can go in and look at it and you can decide what you want to do with it.
Welcome to the IoT Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Peter Rode-Chen, CEO of Tolin Tech Sub-Solutions in Shanghai. And today we are exploring beyond the usual industrial focus to discuss something fascinating that's transforming all AI applications. I'm joined by Jonatan Bjork from Llongterm, with a double L at the beginning. All right. An innovative company providing long-term memory solutions for AI systems. In a world where AI typically struggles to remember context across conversations, Llongterm is creating technology that helps these systems maintain meaningful, persistent memory, essentially giving AI a mind that remembers. We'll explore how this technology works, its wide-ranging applications, and the implications for human-AI interaction in the future.
Welcome to the Industrial IoT Spotlight, your number one spot for insight from industrial IoT thought leaders who are transforming businesses today. With your host, Eric Walenza.
Jonatan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, maybe quickly introduce yourself to the audience.
So my name is Jonatan Bjork. I'm the co-founder of Llongterm. I have over a decade of experience in building large-scale cloud infrastructure. And I'm a full-stack software engineer as well. Yeah, I'm very, very excited to be here.
Excellent. So I can call you Jonathan. Okay, that makes it easy. Okay, although I've spent a long time working with the Swedish companies in the past, yeah, it's still easier to stick to the English terms. Okay, could you tell us a bit about your background and what led you to actually develop Llongterm? What brought you to get it started?
It actually started on a sort of personal note. Both me and my co-founder, we had separately, this is about a year ago, gone through our own very painful breakups, relationships sort of falling apart. And we both found that generative AI was helpful in this, was supporting us. So we saw an opportunity in using LLMs to provide relationship support. So that's kind of a really far away from where we are today with Llongterm, but it actually started there with building relationship copilot backed by LLMs.
Okay.
And this then led us on to discovering the memory problem with LLMs. So basically, with generative AI, everything needs to know about you. You have to tell it within what's called the context window. So that's the text that you feed into the prompt. Kind of need to give it all of that up front. And then when you start over, it forgets. It doesn't keep this context over the long term. And so in solving for this problem, we realized, hey, this is something that will go way beyond the scope of that app we were building at the time. And it's something that can be used in many apps to help build this trust between human and AI and make it easier to interact with generative AI. So that's how Llongterm came.
Interesting. Okay. So you organize information in a structured, human-readable form. Why is that so important, this approach?
Well, you kind of need to be able to, I think, be able to feel the structure yourself as a user, to trust that the memory is working the way it should, and also feel like you're in control. Because I think that's something that a lot of users struggle with Gen AI applications. That you're going out there, you're telling your life story to this opaque LLM, and you're not quite sure what it's doing with this, and you're not quite sure how it manages this information that you're giving it. So that's also a big part of it, getting this structured format so that you can, as a user, visualize it. You can just quickly scroll through it and you can get an overview.
Okay.
And you can also know that this is the thing that whatever agent is going to use. It's not something opaque that you're not quite sure what you told it. And
Okay. So you mention features on, I believe on a website I found it, features like knowledge map, self-structuring, and timeline. How do these components of features, how do they work together? They are the core components?
So the knowledge map is really the structure of data. But put simply, it's JSON.
Okay.
So the JSON format is probably the most widely used standard on the internet for passing data around. It's something that developers know, and it's intuitive for non-developers as well to look at. The self-structuring part is basically when you give new information to Llongterm, we already have a structure it's sort of like a hierarchy of information. And when there's new information coming in, we need to categorize it and figure out where to store it. And then over time, as the data set grows, maybe there are details that aren't so important, or pieces of information that can be merged into one place. And that's the self-structuring bit. And it's also based on the specialization that you give to we call it mind. We're actually thinking of a better phrasing of this, because mind is probably too big. It's too big. It doesn't really encapsulate what it is. So we're thinking about a different way of talking about it.
Okay. Yeah.
We went for mind because it was sort of an easy entry point, but building a mind is very hard.
But it's obviously, yeah.
So it's not actually the thing, right?
We haven't gotten there yet. Yeah, with our technology. Okay.
But when you create a mind, you give it a specialization, and that tells the system to focus on information that's relevant for the specialization. For example, the specialization could be a nutritionist or a mental health coach, or it could be a customer support agent. That based on that specialization, it then informs the structuring. So what are the key topics that it should cover? What are the key things that it should try and remember?
Okay. And that's actually very good that you say that, because I realized I skipped a question. And that's indeed the mind as a service topic, which you just explained, which I wanted to explore in practical terms. So it's called mind as a service, although it's a simplification of the actual mind which we have. It's not trying to reproduce what there is.
Yes, so that's why we're thinking sort of moving away in terms of language, maybe moving away from the word mind, because obviously not going to that level of complexity. And in fact, we strive for the opposite, for simplicity. And one of the key benefits of using Llongterm is that it's simple. It is plug and play, and so we're not pretending that we're building this very complicated mind. But
of course,
what it really is it's a software as a service. But it doesn't seem right to call it software when the core data set is something that you can talk to and effectively can talk to you. But yeah, when you integrate it into your app, what you essentially get is this focused segment of information and knowledge that's specific to a user, and a specialization that user is interested in. So that if you're building an app for interview preparation for job interviews, then that's the specialization. but each user of your application then gets their own little space that remembers things about them, their goals, their ambitions, their areas that they want to improve, or whatever your application figures out about them.
Okay. So we have talked about what does it solve basically in the AI space, right? Mind as a service. Then we have talked about a knowledge map, self-structuring, timeline. Let's have a look at the applications and use cases. Is that okay? Yeah. So what are some of the most interesting and unexpected ways people are using your long-term memory technology?
We have seen many use cases in different industries, like education, business, mental health. One of the recent example is an app that helps students prep for the GCSEs. So prep for exams, basically.
Yeah.
And where it's using the API to load in information in advance, actually, that the students need to memorize, but also then uses the memory to capture new context and help the application better understand the user's needs and remember them in a way that sort of offloads all of it. It doesn't need to, so the app no longer needs to put all that context into the prompt.
Okay.
Where it can fetch that through Llongterm. And that's a perhaps not entirely unexpected, but the different angles, I think, were unexpected.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Although, I think it would be good. It just has to be, all those information I put in there have to be kept safe, right? It's still a bit of a challenging thing that that everything you ever said to your AI will be stored away. But okay, so what challenges exist in designing memory systems that feel natural and intuitive? What is the challenge in?
So I think going back to what we said earlier, I think exploring the memories is really interesting, like from a user perspective, that you need to be able to sort of parse it and navigate it to feel confident that it's remembering the right things. Sort of step through it and make sense of it. Which I think we're doing okay at the moment in terms of making visible to the user.
Okay. And now going back to the applications, if you don't mind, having a persistent memory change the nature of what AI can do. How does that compare to the traditional systems we have in place now? What is the difference between the solution you have and the current setup? I mean, ChatGPT remembers certain things about me as well, right? How does that differ from Llongterm?
So I think context is everything, and it's interesting you should mention two things here: the ChatGPT one, and then traditional or existing systems. So let's start with the latter. When you call a customer support number, it could be any company, right? Today, you still mainly get to talk to another human. And what happens is you have to tell that human what your background is, who you are. You have to give them details about yourself. But you also have to tell them the story of why you're calling them so they can make sense of it. And then maybe the line gets cut off or you ask to call back later or something. So you have to call back again. You have to do this again. So you repeat everything again.
Yeah.
And then, but it doesn't end there. If your call gets escalated to the next, like second level, third level support, you have to then explain to every person along the way
exactly
who you are, why you're there, and what the problem is. And you have to also somehow convince each person that your problem is worth solving because they're looking at it with fresh eyes. So
extremely annoying, yeah.
What if you instead in the loop here had an AI agent that it's not replacing the human, but simply helping them? You would get, with this sort of long-term memory that's mapped to the user that is contacting your company, they will have the context and they'll have it in a you can just glance at it and you grasp, okay, this is the issue. And I think that would be a huge improvement.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would indeed be a huge improvement. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that's also one of those particular domains or crucial applications where you think AI long-term memory would show its best performance, right? Or do you have any other good examples you could bring up where this really brings benefits?
Yeah, so I think the most crucial part is exactly this, human-AI interaction. And it really comes down to trust. So when you talk to a human, you're not expecting, like when you talk to me, you're not expecting me to remember every detail, everything that you told me, but you expect me to have a grasp of who you are, what you've done, and sort of to be able to have a conversation. So if I were to say, if I were to completely forget everything that you told me, then it's like we're having to start over every time. And I think that's the experience a lot of people have when interacting with Gen AI, whether it's through a chatbot or through a series of agents, that they start off okay, but then they reach a point where the memory is sort of gone.
Yeah.
And they lose the trust. A great example is this one customer was telling me about. They had an application where the users could talk to an LLM, and it was just in the mental health space, and they would talk to the LLM for quite a long time and share a lot of details, and get to a point where the user, so let's say they were reading a book together, and then the user was telling the LLM about the book, everything's happening, and talking about the plot, and then a few days pass, they come back to it, and they say, hey, do you remember that book we read? And the LLM goes, no. And the user then says, no, but we did read it. And then the worst part is the LLM then starts trying to make up for that, the way they do, by essentially what comes across as gaslighting the user, saying, oh yeah, I definitely remember. But it doesn't, right?
Okay, yeah, okay.
And this is, so they said, this customer said, when memory fails, we lose users.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that's, yeah, indeed. I myself would have some use cases for it, actually. I'm not going to call names now of the apps I'm using, but some of them get really annoying because they never remember what I have been talking about yesterday. And it always starts from scratch, indeed. Yeah, it would be very helpful, indeed.
If you're still listening, then you must take technology seriously. So I'd like to introduce you to our case study database. Think of it as a roadmap that can help you understand which use cases and technologies are being deployed in the world today. We have cataloged more than 9,000 case studies and are adding 500 per month with detailed tagging by industry and function. Our goal is to help you make better investment decisions that are backed by data. Check it out at the link below, and please share your thoughts. We'd love to hear how we can improve it. Thank you, and back to the show.
Okay, I'm trying not to jump too much around with the questions now. So maybe one more about the user experience. So how do you balance the need for AI to remember important details without overwhelming it with trivial information?
So this is not an easy problem to solve, but the good thing is this is actually where AI itself is really can do a lot. So LLMs are insanely good at classification. So you basically ask the LLM to do these steps for you. So you can identify what's important, what's the key argument in this paragraph, or what's the sentiment. You can really get very accurate assessments.
Okay.
And that helps a lot. So if a user says, "Oh, I'm going to Paris next week, which is the capital of France," then we don't need to remember that Paris is the capital of France.
Yeah,
that's not important. We do need to remember that they're going there.
Yeah,
but that's sort of it. We don't have to capture all those.
Okay. So that's actually the LLM is handling this part mostly.
Yes.
Of course, it's crucial, but that's good. Okay. Then let's look at the implementation and the integration. So how difficult is it to integrate Llongterm into an existing system? What's the typical process to do that?
As a middleware, it's a few lines of code.
Mm-hmm.
That's really straightforward.
Okay.
We have an SDK for JavaScript.
Okay.
But we support any language using the REST API.
All right.
So the SDK is just a thin wrapper around the API. But we're also really interested in having agents read and write via MCP, Model Context Protocol.
Okay.
Which is a fairly new protocol that instructs how to plug various systems into LLMs.
Okay. Well, that's already answering the next question as well, because there are a few code snippets on your website and you support something else as well. That's good to know. Then a big topic, data security, privacy. How do you handle those concerns? That's what I mentioned earlier, right? Already, it's a big concern for everybody using AI nowadays.
Yes, it's very important. And I think it's important to recognize that as an industry and also as users, we have, interestingly, actually thrown that away a little bit. And so I'm really glad you bring that up because, for example, OpenAI with ChatGPT, I think they have 300 million active users at the moment. They might change. I mean, correct, but it's millions of users anyway, and they're all talking to it about everything. Right? You're sharing everything about your life, about your business. You tell it things that you probably wouldn't tell, maybe not anyone, any other human, but that is all owned by that one company. So, in terms of security, in terms of privacy, like hundreds of millions of people have already kind of given that away without much consideration. And so I view our task as being helping users regain some of that control over their own data. And that's why I think it's so important that we build something that is portable and you're not locked into using our platform and that you can go in and edit it, you can go in and look at it and you can decide what you want to do with it. So, but yes, so security for us is super important. And one thing that I've learned throughout my career is you have to start with security from day one. It's incredibly hard to build that in after the fact.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to think about how you structure it. So we follow all the best practices for secure development and deployments, making sure that we encrypt all the communication and to secure the data where it's stored.
Okay, good. And can companies or people deploy it by themselves, that solution, or is it it's a SaaS solution, as you mentioned?
So what's available now is a SaaS where we do hold the data, but we are exploring a self-hosted version on the open source side. But also we have an offering for enterprises who want to host on-premise.
Okay. That's good. Yeah, I think this will be in demand for certain companies, people. Yeah. Okay, very good.
I should add to also what I said about people throwing away the privacy concerns.
Yeah,
it's nuanced, right? It's not everyone, but a lot of people. But that is on the consumer side. On the business side, B2B, business to business, it is almost the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
Companies are more concerned than ever about making sure that the data stays on-premise or within their virtual private cloud.
Yeah, employees uploading confidential information to ChatGPT. Yeah, that's a big problem indeed.
And I think that's changed. So previously, companies would, prior to Gen AI, companies would not really have a problem with employees, asking questions on Stack Overflow or writing blog posts about what they're doing and publishing it online. Whereas it's almost flipped now, and everyone's very protective of their information, their data, which is almost the entire opposite of what you see in the consumer space.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So looking at the ethical and social considerations, maybe are there scenarios where you believe AI systems should explicitly forget information? And is it possible to do that? How do you approach this requirement?
Definitely. This is, I think, is very important.
It's still a machine. Yeah. We need to treat it like that.
Well, it's almost more than a machine because it has in a very focused way, it has the intelligence that surpasses the human intelligence in a very focused, narrow sense.
Yeah.
So yes, and we have many customers telling us about this, that when they were first exposed to what you mentioned earlier, OpenAI's ChatGPT memory feature, where suddenly random bits of information that they had inputted into a chat earlier, they will pop up in unrelated conversations, and it threw a lot of people. They didn't understand what was happening. And some people even said this is kind of creepy. Why does it know this? I don't remember telling it about it. And so that goes back to everything we tell it everything, share so much. So we have to have the ability to forget. And that's an example. I like the example of, imagine that you're talking to your AI agent, and you're saying you want help with preparing for a job interview. So it gives you all this help about preparing. And then the next day you go to your current job and you're sitting on a coffee break, and you're, just for fun, you have the agent join in the conversation, as you can do with voice. There are already products doing that. And you're just having a laugh, you're talking about sailing and video games and whatnot, when your iPhone suddenly says, "Oh, I'm sure you'd miss this banter if you get the job you applied for just."
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be able to be selective about this. And we have Llongterm.forget. We just haven't exposed it yet. But what you can do today is you can go in through the Explorer, which is an online tool where you can actually edit memory yourself, and you can delete any.
You can delete it. Yeah. All right. That's good. So market position and future. So what differentiates Llongterm from other AI memory solutions?
So most Llongterm solutions today are either vector-based or graph-based. Graphs are an especially powerful way to dynamically encode information. You manipulate nodes and edges, so you can represent very complex memory states in efficient and elegant ways. Llongterm instead stores the memory as plain text JSON.
Yeah.
So it's just a big old blob of JSON that self-assembles at an arbitrary depth, and it's a lot simpler. So it's simplicity. There seem to be some real benefits of storing data in a format that LLMs can natively comprehend. It's just text. And it also has the benefit of making the memory more portable. So if it's JSON, then you can take it anywhere. You can do whatever you want with it. And you don't have to export it from somewhere. It is already there. We may be a little bit early here, but if you think about what's happened to the compute landscape, most recently, we had computation, the basic unit of compute. So maybe 2 decades ago, or 15 years ago, it was CPU core. So when you sold an enterprise software, you would sell it by how many CPU cores. That's how you licensed software in the past. And then cloud became the standard. And so the basic unit of compute is a CPU hour, which is how you buy compute in the cloud.
Power,
That's basically what everything boils down to. In the Gen AI era, the basic unit of compute is token. And token is a word, right?
Yeah.
Basically, which is text. So aligning yourselves with that, I think, will have some long-term benefits moving forward.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense, actually. Yeah, that makes sense. Long-term benefits as well. So looking long-term ahead, 3 to 5 years, where do you see long-term in the next 3 to 5 years?
Also, I think there's sort of 2 stages here. And the most pressing one is what we talked about. How do we make agents more useful? How do we help them remember? And this is where a lot of companies need help today. For example, with the customer support agent, be it human and AI or a combination. But then there's the grand vision. And today everyone is talking to Gen AI agents in countless different places. Apps, and they may not even be typing directly to it. It's indirect. But they're all silos. So you sign up for one app, you have to start over. And every time you do this, you have to start over. You have to tell your story again. And so we haven't actually solved that problem. But what if each time you sign up for a new service or you interact with an agent, it can ask you, do you have a long-term account?
Yeah.
Kind of like how you log in with Google or how you give apps access to your different GitHub repositories. What if you could give it your long-term account and you can say, I want to share this thing, this part of my account with you.
Very smart, yeah.
So then as a user, I'm in control. As an app developer, I get to give my users a better experience from day one because they're already bringing some context with their long-term account. And over time, all these apps can contribute back to the whole mind if the user so chooses. And so that's, to me, a win-win for the user, for app developers, and hopefully for us as well. So that's the idea of bringing your own mind.
Okay, very smart. I think that's a very good idea. Yeah, I think the last question would be how can users get started? How can potential users, customers get started? Can they go to your website, sign up, or how?
So we are actually currently onboarding customers individually, superhuman style. So they can reach out to either me directly or the team, and I'll share the details on how to do that, and we'll get a call to get started.
Okay. Excellent. Very good. Thanks, Jonatan Bjork.
Thank you.
Very interesting conversation. Wishing you good luck, although I'm pretty sure this is going to be a success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Industrial IoT Spotlight. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at IoT1HQ and to check out our database of case studies on IoT1.com. If you have unique insight or a project deployment story to share, we'd love to feature you on a future edition. Write us at eric.walenza@IoT1.com.